Myla was 19 years old and was still the youngest person in most of her classes. It wasn't obvious, though, as many mage women stopped aging at around 19. Myla knew she was going to. Even those who had become mages later in life could reverse their aging to a point where they appeared 19. That also helped Myla feel less like the odd one out, as most of their classmates were anywhere from a few years older than her to 60 years older than her. Those who were outside of that range didn't tend to go to the same classes as Myla. The average soul energy was also significantly higher than in non-mages. Myla looked down at her schedule. She was heading to a class on electromagnetism, but then she had personal tutoring for an hour to help her prevent herself from aging. That was listed as the 2 hour block right before lunch break. If she was slow enough to need it, she could have lunch taken in so that she could finish up the project. The lesson on electromagnetism was fairly interesting, but she found herself distracted. She was very well versed in this topic, as were most lessons, but she could always learn more. Mostly she was excited about stopping her aging, and that thought distracted her from the lesson. That was probably going to bite her later, but she couldn't help it. When class was over, Myla took out a notebook and started going through her notes about the patterns that usually help the age reversal process go smoother. Chromosome patterns, scar tissue, tissue deformation, and a host of other kinds of patterns that usually helped. While she was reviewing and floating along down the hallway, she noticed a slight increase in the brightness of the area on the right edge of her vision. That was a sign that someone was with a strong soul was nearby, and it carried with it a sense of flirtatiousness and other things. She instantly recognized him and had specifically been warned away. Not interested, Jimmy. Don't even try. Then she promptly sped up her flight by a notch, hoping he would get the hint. He didn't. He went forward a bit more and walked backwards in front of her. Surely you can't refuse. You could increase the amount of energy in the universe. Myla sighed. I'm doing that right now, simply by being made of matter. Chromosome patterns were like double helixes wrapped up into X's. The end buffer was similar but less complicated. Yes, but that is simply a passive side effect of existing. Surely it can't compare to the active increase of energy in the universe. Most good things are passive. Scar tissue is basically fleshy fabric, simple compared to regular tissue. But then you aren't actually causing it. Yes, I am. Tissue deformation was basically large sections of tissue being twisted or offset from the rest of the tissue. Surely you want to do something active, like the Magnet you designed. That was active. Wasn't it so much more amazing than everything else? The mana magnet was a passive construct, and it by itself can't do anything if the mana isn't used, much like how intelligence is useless if it isn't used. They can both just be inefficient. He didn't seem to catch the insult there, probably assuming he was so far above everyone else that he couldn't be insulted. Yes, and I have a soul energy that isn't being used. He said that last word with a smirk. Probably thinking he had outsmarted her. She made it to a tall steel tunnel, which she promptly started flying up, using her mana memory to unconsciously shoot herself up the tunnel. So, is that a yes? No. Why would he even ask? She had already told him the answer. Why not? Myla looked him straight in the eye. One, we're not married, therefore the answer will always be no. Two, any action on that front here would make Amy angry, and I've met her multiple times. She would eat my soul. Third, no person who I know or care about would approve of such an action. Fourth, I don't want that in my mana identity. Fifth, I don't want to. Sixth, I'm a busy person. Any one of those would be more than enough reason, and it's never going to happen. She stepped into the mage's study, magnetically closing the door behind herself. Then she walked forward towards the minister mage who gave lessons on age reversal, who sat at his desk. He waved toward the chair opposite him, and she sat down. The minister mage was an odd fellow, and he had reversed his physical age to that of an 8-year-old. He spoke with his slightly squeaky voice. Well, are you Myla? She nodded. Good, you look pretty young, so let's get started. You probably have only been a mage for a short time, no more than a decade, so young. The mage had clearly not heard of Myla, but just as well. He was spot on to how long she had been a mage, though. He was clearly an odd man set in his ways, no matter the child's body. He was mildly intrigued by her mana channel, but not overly so. About an hour and a half later, she had finished and created an efficient mana construct that prevented her from aging. He was impressed by her speed, but not overly so. Myla just wanted to stop her aging, not reverse it, for one thing. She also had more experience than most mages her age, so the process went smoothly. What effect does aging have on your soul? The minister thought for a moment. That one is actually pretty easy. I'm no soul mage, but I think the only effect of aging on the soul is an increase in efficiency. There may be some other more esoteric effect only soul mages know about, but I highly doubt it. After that, he shooed her off, wanting to get back to his study. She smiled and floated over to the cafeteria. She was rather happy about getting to lunch early. They had an extremely wide selection, but only a limited amount of each. This meant that the best food was always gone first. She did think it rather odd. The food was all created magically, and each dish could be emptied several times and be refilled before it stopped. But who was she to judge? She was only an apprentice mage after all. Speaking of which, apprentice was the lowest make of magehood, followed by graduate and minister. Master was next, and a few of the teachers had achieved this rank, but most hadn't. Students were always apprentices or graduates. Teachers were usually ministers with a few masters mixed in. Grand Masters also occasionally performed lectures, and no lower ranked mage would miss such a performance. Some rumors said that the sages, almost exclusively the members of the council, would come and teach a lesson every decade or so. A man who appeared to be in his 20s, but was almost certainly older, came and sat next to her. He had one orange eye and one blue eye. He had brown clothes and hair, and the eyes probably meant he was a former. His most important attribute, however, was that he was glowing intensely to her soul sight. He felt like fire, water, spellcasting, and gaming. However, so she assumed that he was also part Scion and elf. Hello, I am Minister Indiana. My parents pulled some strings to let me stay in the academy so long as I help teach. May I endeavor for your name? Myla smiled kindly. Hello, I am Apprentice Myla. I take it that your parents are mages as well? Indiana chuckled mirthlessly. Yes, they're mages. One is a former, and the other was a part elf, part Scion. That's where the eyes came from. I can tell you that you are a Laysan, but what do you tend to specialize in? Myla smiled. My mana channel is somehow able to manipulate magnetism instead of light, and I am a magnetism made with extremely minor soul manipulation capabilities. Ah, good for you. Not a mage family then? No, my family was a normal Laysan one, even if we had a bit more mana than average. Not nearly as exciting as yours seems to be. Indiana chuckled. Definitely, my family isn't exactly normal, not by a house or a multiverse. Then several other mages Myla knew sat down next to them. Her closest mage friend, Delilah, said, Well, you're out early. How did your age class go? Super good. I even managed to get out early and earn the best food. I can see you weren't quite so lucky. They grumbled for a moment, but got over it very quickly. Then Delilah noticed Indiana. Hello, I'm Delilah. I'm a rifter specializing in portals. This is Kyle, an opposite tier specializing in mind links and telepathy. And then that is Callista, a fairy dwarf former Scion focusing on rain. Indiana nodded politely. Hello to you all. I am Minister Indiana. Oh, you a teacher then? An assistant. Parents pulled a few strings to keep me here. Something about me failing to be sociable. They're afraid of me being detached from society, though I have their many identities to overcome in that regard. Then he looked through the corner of her eye, where he probably had a clock, and sighed. Then he ate the last of his food, and his orange eyes shifted to a strange burgundy color. Then orange swirls started going off in his irises. Well, I'd better get going. Nice meeting you all. I'll see you around. Then he quickly walked off in an overly effective and precise path that brought him by the tray bin and sent him out the door. Delilah turned back to Myla. Well, it was interesting. Did you see his eyes at the end? Another of her friends spoke up. Yeah, he was probably some kind of specialized eye mage. Sign form mix? Did he say anything before we arrived, Myla? Yes, he did. His dad is a former, and his mom is a half Scion, half elf. They're both mages with at least some authority, and he said that his family was not normal, though that's pretty much guaranteed with two mage parents. Delilah sighed. If his parents are both mages, then his normal's probably the mage normal. Maybe he comes from a line of mages and knows his ancestors back a dozen generations or something. That was something that could easily happen with mage families, and they sometimes all looked nearly identical. Maybe he had identical twins for siblings, or his grandpa was a dragon or something. It really could mean anything. He also had an absurdly strong soul, so maybe they were soul mages? That would make sense. Formers and elves often became soul mages. Maybe he has ignited a few souls himself. He can be a soul mage. Don't say that, Kyle. If he is still at the academy, if only kind of. But still, Myla, did you sense soul ignition in his soul? Callista, I didn't specifically search through his soul, but there wasn't any injected soul energy, and he wasn't obviously a soul mage. How's your gravity class this morning? Good. It was a large lecture hall, and Elijah was speaking. I think I am significantly better at gravity magic than before. The magical enhancement is no joke, and that is one of Elijah's specialties. It makes me seem so small that someone so powerful is enough to improve several hundred people that much in just a few hours. And there are 11 people like that, each with a different area of expertise, and several powerful grandmasters too. Myla focused on Callista's soul, and had a noticeable amount more gravitational sensibility. She whistled. Yup, significantly increased gravitational sensibility. Wait, someone make me a mirror. Kyle pulled out a mirror out of the air and handed it to Myla. Thanks. Then Myla took a good look at herself in the mirror. She was glowing faintly with soul energy that held a magnetic mage and soul energy manipulation field. Through that aura, she could also tell that she had a knack for flight and technology, and a tiny bit that was new. A bit of identity that looked like it was signifying glowing eyes. Are my eyes glowing? Kyle nodded. Yes, they are always more intense than usual, but that's normal for you. They also seem to be a bit more green than usual and glow faintly. You're doing? Not consciously. Was Minister Indiana powerful enough for his man identity to rub off on me? She looked closer at that part of the man identity, which also imprinted itself on her soul. She then felt faint gaming magic, fire and water spellcasting, and eye magic. It appears he was, because this piece feels oddly similar to his main identity. I have never done anything with gaming magic. They looked back towards where Indiana had disappeared. He was apparently above average, even for a minister mage. Who was he? Myla turned back to her friends and started talking about their classes. People think becoming a mage is easy. The record for the lowest age for a mage is 8 after all. They're wrong. Becoming a mage and actually shaping mana, let alone memorizing extremely exact mana patterns to use, is absurdly difficult. Unlike what some might think, using a mana channel does not make you a mage. That's like calling an invalid who can twitch their fingers an athlete. Graduate maid Grinda when her grandson showed light interest in becoming a mage when Grinda was age 80, a few weeks after reversing and stopping her aging.